Good afternoon. I'm Laura, and I'm inviting you to walk with me between worlds. I'd like to share a story with you from deep in the heart of the Yucatan Peninsula. This is a story about shape-shifting. Shapeshifters here are called white chivo. Y is spelled Y-U-I, and it's your soul. And chivo actually means goat. So some people might shift into a goat, others might shift into a dog. In other words, they would be a white perro, or maybe they would shift into a cat or a jaguar or a pig. You could shift into any kind of animal. I was in a small village called Waima, which is really kind of dead center in the middle of the Yucatan Peninsula, near a town called Valladolid. And there's a man there who, his name is Don Emilio, who is a master potter, and he is in his 60s, very gentle, older man. And he shared some stories with me about white chivos. His pottery is really amazing. I wish that I had some pictures to show with you. If I can later, I will actually add some photos of his pottery in the comments below this video so you can see them. Because his pottery was inspired by these shapeshifters. And in some of them, you'll see that half of the face is not formed completely. The other half of the face looks like an animal. There's pottery of masks. There's pottery of half human, half animal kind of creations. And this is not something that just came from his imagination. According to him, this is something that came from his personal experience, that shapeshifters still exist in the Yucatan. And he told me a story. He said, way back in the 1980s, which makes me feel old because I was born after the 1980s, or before the 1980s, way back in the 1980s, when there was no road that went from Waima into Valladolid. Waima was a tiny village, Valladolid being the bigger town. You might need to get into Valladolid very quickly. And so you would just turn yourself into an animal and then run through the jungle, because it took a long time to walk. But if you could turn yourself into a jaguar or a dog, then you could run very quickly through the jungle and get to the city. But this is the words that he said to me. When you get into Valladolid and you turn yourself back into a human, the people who see you change from an animal back into a human might be a little bit disturbed. This seems like such an understatement to me. And it's so typical. This is so typical of the Mayan way of telling stories. A lot of the things they say that might seem extremely outlandish to us are very understated. So I'm imagining myself being in Valladolid and seeing somebody, actually an animal, who's still got some human characteristics. Maybe they're wearing a little coat or a pair of sneakers, or maybe only half their face has turned into an animal. And then all of a sudden they go from being a jaguar on all fours to standing up and shifting their bones and everything and then turning into a human. Don't you think you'd be a little bit disturbed? I think I would be. He's a very gentle man, Emilio, Don Emilio, and I believe his stories. No doubt, he believes his stories. So I'm very excited to share some more of these stories with you in some future videos. And in the meantime, let's stretch our imagination. Let's allow for things that maybe we never thought were possible to possibly have the potential to exist? Can you have space? You don't necessarily need to believe, but can you have space for why chivos, for shapeshifters? I can. In the meantime, we will walk between worlds. Hugs and butterflies.